And so for the audience, let me just do a quick intro of you, and then we can get into it. So Ham Namakajjo is currently the director for the Uganda Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Initiative. Ham previously worked at Bain and Google Uganda as the country manager. He also has a long and storied history working in various entrepreneurial ventures. Feza, It in Uganda, just to name a few. And I'm so glad to have you on the show, Ham, and I can't wait for the audience to learn about your journey and how it's led you to what you're doing today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rose. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So I thought it would be interesting, full disclosure, you and I went to the same grad school, but obviously
I was about to say.
Yeah. And you were the cool kid because you came back to recruit for your firm Bain at the time, and that's how we met. But I always found it curious that you are from Uganda, but went to school in Tanzania and then later to the UK and finally found your way to the US. But how did you find yourself in TZ for your undergrad studies?
So I don't know how it is in Kenya, but when you do your Form 6, your secondary leaving exams, usually those days, a long time ago, we had probably one main university in Uganda. So there's this whole, your results determine if you'll get in and if you'll get into the course you want. So I failed to get into engineering in Makerere. And so what happened was there was an exchange program with the University of Dar es Salaam for electronic engineering. So I applied for it and ended up there. So.
Interesting. And how did you find yourself from there then to the UK and eventually the US?
So immediately after graduating from University of Dar, I joined the telecoms regulator, Uganda Communications Commission, worked there probably for about 2 years before I decided I wanted to do a master's. So went to the UK for my master's, where I was studying more telecoms, but I found myself more interested in the business side of things. So did a blended sort of master's with telecoms and the business side of that. So once I did that, I realized I came back to UCC, to Uganda Communications Commission. I realized I didn't have the business fundamentals, and that's the side I was more interested in. So then decided to go back to business school, which is what landed me in the US. So the UK was my master's at Coventry University, and then UPenn in the US.
Okay, awesome. And so, after B school, you're working at Bain. What was the moment where you decided you were going to transition back home?
So there wasn't a moment where, I guess there's a moment, but it wasn't like it was a planned thing. I was transitioning out of Bain. So I don't know, did you work in consulting or no?
Yes, but not in New York.
Like a different kind of consulting. But anyway, consulting. You do your 2-3 years, then you have to make a decision. Am I going to be a lifer?
Yes.
A lifer consultant, or should I take these skills somewhere else? And I knew from the get-go, I just wanted to get the skills and then go into industry. It's good being an advisor on the advisory side, but I was more excited about actually implementing things. So at that point, I was transitioning out of Bain and thinking about where to go next. And I was still in the States. My mind was, let me find another job in the States. So I'm interviewing with all sorts of companies in Silicon Valley and mostly in California. Then I saw an ad for Google. They were looking for a country manager, first for East Africa, then it became Uganda. So I looked at it for about 6 months before, I said, you know what, let me call these people. So I call Google. They put me through to Joe Michero, who was the Africa lead at the time. He's now your cabinet secretary, I think, for ICT.
ICT, correct.
So Joe, yeah, really sold me on the vision they had. It was super exciting. Obviously, the Google brand was huge, and coming back with that brand and the types of things they were trying to do were super exciting. He's a salesman, basically. So despite the fact that I hadn't planned to go at that time or come back, it made sense. It's like, we're always talking about the change we're going to see in Africa. Here's an opportunity for you to actually be involved in making that change and be involved in the takeoff of Africa. So yeah, so like 6-7 interviews later, given an offer, and I came back. That was 2011, I believe.
Okay, wow. Okay. I love how everyone's return story is so different. Like for you, it was, not much like planning and laboring over it. It was just reaching out for an opportunity that lined up with your skill set, your experience. So that's pretty amazing. And so what did you do after Google? Because I think this is where it starts to get really interesting in your story.
Where it starts to get murky. So while we were at Google, so at that point in time, the use of internet business was still very it was a nascent industry. The use of the internet in business was very, very low, at least in the region, especially in Uganda. So what we're doing at that time was trying to solve particular impediments to the use of internet. One was access, two was content. So the access problem was largely being tackled. The other question was, what's the content? If you give access to, give people access to the internet or businesses, what do they do on the internet? And now it might seem like very obvious, but back in the day, it was a different, thing.
That's
so we had a lot of discussions around content. What kind of content? How do we get, how do we use the internet to actually solve some society problems? So me and my colleague at Google at the time kept thinking about crowdfunding, which is the thing that came up mostly now in our minds. How do we help solve some issues through crowdfunding? And what had happened in tandem with us thinking about that was we were launching YouTube in all these countries, right? In about 6 African countries. So we kept meeting very, very talented people, but all of them were struggling, right? And in our minds were like, if by the draw of luck, you have this talent, you should be able to monetize it. So then I guess those two things clicked. If we can use the internet to help these guys make a living for themselves, then that's starting to help people use the internet in meaningful ways. So we started out with experimenting with the crowdfunding platform, built that, and then decided, we need to give it full attention. So that's when I left Google and started Feza, which was the crowdfunding platform.
Interesting.
For musicians.
Yeah. So was that your first entrepreneurial venture?
Yes, that was my first entrepreneurial venture. I'd been involved in other people's venture, but that was the first one that I was leading.
And looking back on that experience, what did you learn about yourself that you then took on to other ventures, and how did that experience shape you?
I think I enjoy things that are not very well defined. I enjoy ambiguity. I cannot deal with routine type things. So I always want things where I'm discovering new things. I'm discovering new things. I'm trying to figure out all sorts of things. There's some sort of creativity in me that comes out when I'm in such situations. And I've always tried to put myself in situations where things are not very well defined, go and figure it out and make it happen. So I think for me personally, my biggest learning was that's the kind of environment I thrive in. If you put me in a very process-oriented, keep doing X, Y, Z, there's bureaucracy, I'll struggle, right? But give me some weird problem, try to figure it out, talk to people, experiment, do all that. Yeah, then I'll be super happy, and the chances for success for me will be a lot higher.
That's really profound. Like the fact that you learned that about yourself pretty early in your entrepreneurial venture. Okay. And then talk to us about Feza and what came after.
Okay, so Feza, as I said, we started out as a crowdfunding platform for musicians. The idea being, so the thesis at that point, hypothesis, was that these guys do not have that startup capital to get themselves going. For example, say $1,000 to go into the studio and cut an album, or a couple of thousand to go do a video that then will help you sell yourself. So that was the initial thought. So we put up a crowdfunding platform. We had projects, like Kickstarter, but for musicians. I think we were very early in. We're too early for the market at that point in time. Secondly, the cultural barriers around that. Ugandans, especially, we don't give money in that way. If you're to have a wedding right now, everyone will contribute to your wedding. People will give you money, whatever. The moment it's a business, for some reason, people are not going to contribute as much. So anyway, we struggled raising even those, small amounts. It took a lot of work on our side to actually raise that money. But what tended to happen was people would come, that guy is very talented. Could we, can we hire him for a gig? And we kept passing them on, a few of them on, until it clicked. If we're trying to help these guys create meaningful income for themselves, then rather than startup capital, maybe getting them gigs will help in that regard. So then we pivoted to a booking platform. Okay,
because that's how I remember Feza. It was like a booking platform where you could. Okay, wow! I didn't know that there was a pivot that resulted in Feza being what it is.
Always pivoting.
Yeah. Okay, so and is Feza still in existence today?
Yeah, Feza is in existence. We've since transitioned again, pivoted again to, we have a pay-per-view platform primarily around live performances.
Nice.
So over the pandemic, so we used to do live performances to help market the artists we're trying to get bookings for. And we held quite a bit of shows, and we would get, you invite various corporates, you do the usual business development around that. But then when the pandemic hit, we had to very quickly figure out how we were going to, again, help these guys, one, still get that exposure, but also try to make money. So we moved those performances online. So we came up very quickly with a pay-per-view platform. Our first show was actually April last year. We managed to do about 13 shows throughout the, from April to about December last year. Which kept, some of our artists earning some money and kept that exposure. In addition, over the years, we found out that these gigging musicians, they tend to keep about 10% of the performance fee. So if Rose were to invite me as a gigging musician to your house, say, and it's going to sound, of course, Kenyan currency and Ugandan currency is different, but let's say you're giving me 10 million, right?
Sure.
10 million Uganda shillings, I'd be able to keep only one, because I have to pay for gear, I have to pay, stage lighting, I have to pay my band, transporting all these things. Exactly. So all that takes away a lot of that performance fee. You only keep 10%. So we found out the biggest cost was the cost of gear. So now we have a gear rental service, and we're building a gear rental platform where we have our own gear that can be rented out to the musicians at very attractive prices, which is probably, I won't say the amount but it's below market. And the platform also allows other people who have gear to monetize their gear. I mean, if it's sitting in a storage somewhere and people need it, that can help you rent it out. So off of that, musicians are able to keep up to 40% of their performance fee
Wow.
from the 10% previously.
Wow.
So yeah, those are the two things we're doing: the pay-per-view platform and gear rentals.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's real impact. And particularly in the creative space where maybe people don't view it as a business opportunity per se, you're really having very solid impact. So kudos to you, man. That's exciting. So I think we've really gotten to know Ham, and now I need to ask some audience-focused questions for folks. Because this season we're in is about people who have made the great return from diaspora and made the transition back home. So what advice would you give for people in various stages of their career who are starting to think about moving back?
I think the biggest thing you can do is keep going back, right? Whenever you have vacation days, and if you don't go to what are the huge, don't go to Miami or Mexico, whatever. Come back to your country, right?
Right.
Come back to your country, because I think the biggest challenge is once you go away for a few years, once you're away, your networks sort of dissipate. You're not as connected to the country as you would. So coming back, you would struggle to get into the spaces that would allow you to thrive and start whatever it is you want to start. So I think the biggest thing is keep coming back. If you can come back every year, well and good, but keep those connections with your contemporaries, because as time goes on, all these people start moving into positions where they're going to be, a lot more valuable, especially if you're moving back. So go back home quite regularly. Keep nurturing those networks, because you're going to rely on them very, very heavily when you get back, when you're on the ground.
Yeah, that has really been consistent throughout the series for sure. And so what was surprising for you when you moved back?
What was surprising for me?
Yeah.
I don't know if there was too much that was surprising, because I kept coming back. I think I didn't anticipate how much of a culture clash, because I was only away for six years, so it wasn't like I spent 20 years out there and coming back, I don't know what's going on. Just the working culture and all that, how different they would be and how much it would affect me or aggravate my psyche. So that was one thing. It's the pace of work, the culture of work was totally different even after a short period of time. So surprising, and also a point of friction for me.
Sure.
Yep, go ahead.
How did you navigate that, or what are your coping mechanisms? Because I think we've all experienced that when making the transition.
I think you just have to calm down, man. Things won't move.
So high strung.
Things won't move as fast. Yeah, you just have to calm down. And again, you have to, play the game within the rules. If you're in a place where things go slow, if you're in a place where, the gears needs to be greased a bit for them to move, you have to play by the rules. So yeah, coming back with all this idealism that we tend to when we're living in these foreign countries and we're looking down upon the practices that are happening, you need to, forget that for a bit, because you're coming to play, know what the rules are, and play by the rules.
Play by the rules. Yeah, that's a good one. Play by the rules. So when you reflect, because actually, when I was like prepping for this interview, I was like, I just remember Ham doing Feza. And I wanted to talk about the work you're doing now and how you fell into it, or like got into it, and your why for going that direction.
Yeah. So having been in the ring myself, ourselves as entrepreneurs, as you know, these small but growing businesses have a lot of challenges. Funding being one of them, especially if you're in the entertainment space. People don't look at the entertainment space as, like you said, there's business opportunities, but in terms of think about that as a scalable opportunity, it's quite limited to actually sell that idea. The financing that's available in this part of the world, majority of the financing is impact financing. And I feel like there's a very narrow definition of what impact is. So a lot of times it's bottom of the pyramid type situations that people are trying to fund, which is well and good. But I think impact needs to be more broadly defined. For example, in our space in entertainment, if you think about every musician who's doing live gigging has about a band of between 4 to 8 people.
Sure.
Those are 4 to 8 families that could be impacted.
Exactly.
In addition to that, they're supporting businesses like the gear rentals. They're supporting casual laborers who help them. So there's it scales and there's 3,000 musicians, say in Uganda alone, at least registered ones. So imagine you're working on say 10% of that. That's still 300 people times 4 times 8. The impact can actually be felt. It's just that people don't look at it that way. Anyway, so that's one of the problems. Financing. Actually, the biggest problem is finance, and many reasons bring that to bear. Many times, our businesses are not yet ready to take on any financing that might be available, or the financing that's available is super expensive. We don't have anywhere to go to learn how to navigate, say, the fundraising space. Or we can't afford expertise, bunch of problems that small startups are
notwithstanding their collateral requirements, among other things.
So it's really a struggle for a small business. But then an opportunity came up where I was being given an opportunity to work with various actors within our ecosystem to try and solve these problems for small and growing businesses. I won't say startups, because startups usually has a very specific sort of boundary. So it's small and growing businesses. So that was the thing. So the Uganda Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Initiative is basically a bottom-up approach towards defining what the priority issues for small and growing businesses are in Uganda, and then working as an ecosystem to design interventions and then implement them in support of the entrepreneurs. So what's important to realize is previously in the ecosystem, there's external actors, funders, NGOs, even governments that will do their research, or from where they're sitting, see particular gaps, and then they'll design interventions to fill those gaps. But many times, they have not really consulted the players that deeply that they're designing these interventions for. And these interventions might be solving a problem that's not the most immediate for the ecosystem actors. So what tends to happen is you'll come with a very interesting, promising project that's promising to have a lot of impact on the entrepreneurs. But then because the organizations are dealing with more fundamental issues at this point, they won't have time to commit or participate in that. So the impact is lessened. So we're saying rather than top down, let's do bottoms up. Let us sit together on the table, figure out what's most urgent for us, and dictate, okay, this is what we want to solve now, and then do that. That way, there's more participation, and the theory is, first of all, because you're involving everyone, the impact will be a lot higher.
Wow. I think I'm a huge proponent of having our voices in some of these interventions. And I'm just so glad you're getting to do that. I got goosebumps just as you were describing, the stakeholder engagement and, being able to do this from the bottom. I'm sure there's frustrating points, but overall, in terms of, the impact that you're getting to have, yay, so exciting.
Thank you.
Do you lean on your consulting background, your entrepreneurial background, or is this kind of the culmination of everything you've done in your career, the role that you have now?
I'd say the latter. So it's a very, again, I'm always drawn to things that are not very clear or not very linear. If you think about building ecosystems, it's not a linear thing of let me do this and it will lead directly to that. You touch this, it probably is interconnected with something else that either you will also elevate or will have an adverse impact. So there are multiple touch points in an ecosystem that you have to balance very well. Again, it's not linear. Things have to go back. There's feedback loops. So for me, it's one entrepreneur trying to figure out a problem and then trying to iterate on what the solution is. Of course, supported by the rigor that we got from both business school and the consulting field.
True.
And also skills, I've gotten elsewhere. I mean, stakeholder management and all that was gotten in my earlier days in the Communications Commission. True. So yeah, it's a culmination of very many things I've done up to this point.
Yeah, it's amazing sometimes how you don't really know where your journey is headed, but as you move through life, it becomes very clear. One of the things I've been reflecting on is the fact that we as Africans, as a continent, we kind of need to level up and be able to have conversations across borders like I'm doing with you now. And kind of really come together as a continent as a whole. And, just hearing the work that you're doing in Uganda, I'm like, wow, that would be very much applicable in Kenya. So how do you see yourself and the work that you're doing in Uganda kind of shaping the entrepreneurial ecosystem? So in Uganda, and then having a ripple effect, are you sharing knowledge with others? How are we all coming together?
Yeah. First of all, let me say this, this working in silos is everywhere at every level, right? So if I just think about Uganda, there's a lot of silos. Some of them are sectoral. So you'll find entrepreneurial communities across sectors. Agriculture community has its own convening. It has its own support structures, financing structures, tourism, small scale industries, all that. So they all don't talk, unfortunately. Even within a particular sector, people don't talk and don't collaborate. So the first thing is to allow people to break out of those silos. And that's one of the things we're thinking very critically about. How do we enable all these ecosystem actors break out of the silos within which they're working? How do we help them connect with each other and create an environment where possible collaboration is going to come from? So that's at the Uganda level. So then the next level becomes, like you said, I mean, the problems we face in Uganda are similar to the problems we face in Kenya. And now, East Africa, the business is being done across borders. So any startup that starts in Uganda, I can bet you the first thing when they're thinking about expanding is to go to Kenya, right? So they're going to meet the same types of problems. So we do need to, as you rightly put it, also break out of those silos of saying Uganda is trying to deal with its own problems, Kenya, we're so interconnected. So what we're doing is, again, this is an experiment around can we work together to define the issues and then build the interventions and based off of that have the larger impact. So yeah, learning is a big component of what we're doing. We will be documenting our experiences over this journey. And it's a long-term journey. It's not like next year I'm going to come back to you and say, solve such a thing. So it's a long-term journey, but documenting the learnings. From the organization's perspective, this is sort of some sort of a pilot. So the things we learn, the lessons we learn can then be used to expand. If this model works, then we can use it. It can be used to expand the same approach in various other countries. And it's not only Uganda that's being looked at. So UEEI, just to give you a bit of context, is under ANDI. ANDI is the Aspen Network of Development Entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And it's present in about 300 countries. So, we have chapters in East Africa, which is out of Kenya, West Africa, South Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia. So all those are looking at this UEEI and seeing and looking for lessons out of that so that maybe it's an approach that can be leveraged in their own markets.
Yes, amazing. I can't wait to see what comes out of it, Ham. I really think there's a lot of lessons there that could be applicable elsewhere. And yeah, these journeys are long. and you're trying to go into uncharted waters. So I really wish you all the best. And I can't wait to see what comes out of it.
Me too. I can't wait to see.
So how would you describe your transition back to Uganda in one word?
One word is difficult. I think it was excitement.
Okay.
If I think about this excitement, what drove me to come back, first of all, was that excitement about things starting to happen in the region. Excitement about the opportunities that the region holds. Excitement about various pieces starting to fall in place. You have Google driving the adoption of internet and driving the infrastructure. You're having Facebook also playing the same, doing the same things. You have e-commerce starting, the early days of e-commerce. So it was excitement about what was going on at that point in time, and the opportunities that offered, and also excitement about being able to be part of the change that we talk about a lot. So yeah, I think my word is excitement.
Excitement. Awesome.
No, so what parallels do you see in I guess my story? And we've known each other for a bit. I think we have never explicitly talked about this. Yeah. But what parallels do you see in this? I know you were in the States for a lot longer.
Yeah.
But yeah. How did you?
I mean, a lot.
Play out?
So I was away for 13 years, and I always knew I wanted to come back, and I wanted to come back earlier. But then, as fate would have it, I came back 3 years after business school. Many parallels. So when I came back, it was like, slow down, take it easy. But the main one I see is that you've always taken risk and you haven't been afraid to fail, or you haven't been afraid to go to uncharted waters. So I take the same approach and I'm learning to reframe failure as learning. I think as a type A, I'm always just like, no, I have to nail this, have to nail that. But sometimes it's about the experience, and it's just about taking a leap of faith. I mean, just as I've done with the podcast, I'm like, I don't know where this thing is going, but I just want to encourage people to tell their stories in an authentic way. And because we need more African voices talking about everything, not just moving back home.
Yeah, this is true.
And I've just always admired from afar, the fact that you started Peza, and then, there was like eating, you worked at Google, Jumia, and used that to just start many things and fail fast and move on to the next one and pivot when you need to. I just think that's really commendable.
Others will say I'm misguided. Instead of having a proper career plan and path, I'm just doing all sorts of things. But this is true. You mentioned something that's quite important. A-type personalities easy to struggle coming back because you're used to achieving at a particular level. You're used to having your life very well thought out and planned out. Maybe you're climbing the corporate ladder, so I need to navigate the politics in this way. I need to skill up in that way, and there's a plan. And it might not be linear, but it's more linear than these things where you just land in a market. Okay, let me figure this out. So yeah, I think there's something to be said about embracing two things: embracing ambiguity. Being able to more and more, and I won't say that I embraced it straight away. I had a soft landing, so I came back. So in terms of, now I'm talking about my entrepreneurial journey, forget about just coming back. So there was a soft landing. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, or be involved in some entrepreneurial management type space. So having a soft landing with a brand like Google allowed me to have some impact, but also reconnect with the market and do all those sorts of things. So some people might not be as lucky,
That's true.
or the opportunities might not come as and when you're looking to make the transition.
Sure.
But I'd say just embrace that. Just take a leap of faith, do it, and give yourself a year or two. Something is going to come out. You're going to learn a lot within those first 2 years. You're going to connect with a lot of people. And what you thought it would be is going to turn out to be totally different. So embrace ambiguity and embrace emergence. So the plan will emerge.
Yeah.
And I think A-type personalities, that's the thing we struggle with. We say we need to know where we're going in somewhat definite terms. But what I've learned over the years, and most recently, something that's helped me think about the emergence is just be comfortable that you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know what your immediate next steps are going to be. But you're going to learn. The more you talk, the more you engage with the problem, the more the clarity starts forming around that. So those two things I think are quite important. They're very difficult things to come to terms with.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, I've had to shed a lot of like what I thought I wanted to be, if I'm making sense. And like, because I realized actually a lot of that was like driven by, I don't know, who I wanted to impress, my family, and like reimagine a new path for myself that allows for the emergence or like the next thing to show up and the next opportunity. And it's been fun. So far, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's very liberating when you obviously we have our long-term goals that we keep sight on.
Absolutely.
It's the how do I navigate to that?
Yeah.
Huh?
You're not totally hippie. We have some goals.
But it's being comfortable and not going into a panic that you're not achieving at least as quick as you thought you would, or the plan is deviating. Maybe I'm trying to push it back to what I thought it should be. I think it's liberating. It's less stress. It frees you up to actually be a little more open-minded. Actually, okay, I've been led to this path, so how do I make the most of it? Or the universe is leading you for a reason. So I don't know about you, but I constantly, I've had some experiences in my life where sort of my life was spared. So in my mind, I'm like, there's a reason my life was spared.
Absolutely.
I haven't yet figured it out, but maybe this is the universe trying to move me towards what I'm really supposed to do. So let me embrace it.
Yeah, let me
embrace it. Let me see how it pans out, and we'll see. Maybe we'll be talking when 20 years from now and say, you were on some other shit, some other stuff.
I'm so glad your life was spared, Ham. I remember that post you made, and I was just like, wow.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here. And I'm so glad you're getting pulled into your purpose and serving entrepreneurs and trying to create an ecosystem that works, that we can all learn from. And I'm so thankful for your time. I'm like, why don't we get on WhatsApp calls more often? I actually really...
We should. Yeah. I think we all get caught up in our own things, and we should. And I think this whole season we're going through, difficult season, has made this more forefront of my mind, at least. That's why when you called out and asked, I was like, yeah, of course. At least I'll talk to her. After not talking to her for a while, but keeping in touch with your people. Rough times, this is what keeps you sane, and you hate being in this situation. You say, I wish I could have done X, Y, Z. I wish I'd reached out. So let's reach out more often. Let's talk more often.
All right, Ham. Thank you. I think we can end it here. Again, thank you so much. Love to the fam. And
thank you. Big hugs to the family.
Yes. And hopefully we can make it back to Kampala soon. Okay. Take care. And come to call us if you come to Nairobi.
Oh, definitely. Always.
Sure. Okay. Cheers, Ham. Thank
Awesome.
you.